What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday Recap Podcast, episode 43. And we are speaking on purpose. That was this Sunday.
Yeah.
Was on purpose. This Sunday was on purpose. For a purpose, you had a lot of those.
I did have a lot of those.
Yes, you had a really good one. We posted that social clip, and it's like, you are for the purpose, anyways.
Yeah.
It was really good.
I was glad it executed well. I'm like, man, that's a lot of P's, but a lot of purpose all in one quote. But
yes.
But it made sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you had so many good, rich points into this. We can dive right into it. But first of all, how's your week? How's things going?
Good. Been a good week. Almost my first full week of back in my rhythm.
Yeah.
So that's been good. Kind of having that last week. And I really feel like personally, it's like there's, of course, always a shift with the new year, but spiritually, it really feels like there's a big shift this year.
Yeah.
So it's been I don't know, it just feels good.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that, for you personally, and I'm sure other pastors are like this, but for you personally, is it like the new year is always inspires you to bring a freshness into new series in the new year, everything is that you?
Yes. I mean, I'm trying to not feel that way because I don't ever want to fabricate something that's not God.
Right.
And it was funny this year, probably more than any year, knowing I was kind of coming into this year already sitting under that, I don't want to come into the year what's my goals, what's my vision for this year. So I was almost like, I'm not establishing any. I'm going to come into this year and just continue on. And it was like I finally was like, I'm not doing that this year. And then God's like, here's the dump for this year. I'm like, I thought we weren't doing this, Lord. And he's like, no, you aren't doing this. But I still do talking seasons. And so, I didn't want to have that pressure this year. And I didn't have the pressure. But what I do feel like is God just kind of provided some really great vision for our church. And
I think so too. I really enjoyed these past, two messages going in. Really, obviously they have a string and a current going through all of them. There's a couple similarities that I liked that I don't even know if we're intentional that we'll get on soon. But I do like the title of this message, Where Purpose Begins. And we're going to test and see real quick if my wife watches the podcast, because we were sitting on Sunday we came back here and we were editing the service and she was sitting with me, and right next to me, she's singing the title. So she's like, where purpose begins, where purpose begins, where purpose begins. She's doing all of these different things, like a nice little tagline. And it really is kind of a funny, because it seems like that's at the end of a Disney Channel or something, whatever. Something, where purpose begins.
Yeah.
And I know you love good taglines and good things like that. So anyways, I guarantee you she will not see that, but I hope if you see her go up in the lobby and just do Where Purpose begins, it's gonna be great. Anyways, I really I enjoyed the title right there. But you had some really good content going into this and sharing, and then you even had your 10 points, which is good. So let's just dive right into that. I guess we can go in from the transition of last Sunday to this one. So before you make any plans, how does that get us to Where Purpose Begins?
It's funny for this series. What I actually was on when I came into this, I'm still not there yet.
Right.
But it was almost like, well, if you say this, you can't say that if you don't say that, and you can't say that. Right. So even this week, the conversation of purpose, we really can't even talk about purpose until we actually stop and recognize who's the author of not just our life, but maybe all existence. Yeah. How can we have purpose outside of reason of existence? Yeah. And who gets to say why we exist? Yeah. So it's almost like you have to get to this big convo. So we're transitioning. Who's the author of our story? Who is God in general, but who is he in my life? And am I giving him that role in my life to even begin saying that purpose in my life comes from him? Right. And then when we step into the conversation of purpose, it was like, okay, well, if we're going to now say that purpose comes from God, well, then let's understand how God sees purpose. And maybe, we can see it in such a individually specific way, but it's much larger than us. And it is that, I think I said that at one point, it's just kind of holding both in your hands of going girl, please. Like, this is so much bigger than you. Stop being main character.
Yeah.
But then also going, actually, you have a very important, significant purpose to play that God has designed you for. And the most rewarding thing about your life will be fulfilling the purpose that God has for you as you partner with him. So both are really true at the same time.
Right.
And keeping that in perspective invites us into this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a good, like you just said, you'll be like, okay, God has this point for me that he needs me to share. But before I share that, it's even like the title, before I make any plans, before I share, there's a couple things you need to know before you get this revelation.
Yeah.
It's like all these precursors to it,
Yes.
or pre-blessings.
Pre-blessings,
Pre-curse. That doesn't sound good. Anyways, but all these things that go before. So yeah, I thought that was good. And then I will say this, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. You keep accidentally saying Gen X instead of Gen Z. You did it on the podcast last week and Sunday. I remember doing the podcast,
but I thought Sunday I really pivoted. But
you were like, "How about my Gen Xers and my alphas?" And I was like, "You skip Gen Z."
You just it's okay.
That really. But you meant Gen Z, anyways. If you were
I'm always meaning Gen Z. Just sub it in.
Yeah, if you ever heard Gen X, she won't say that. She'll just means Gen Z.
Because Gen X is millennials.
I think.
Yeah, we don't really even say Gen X.
Jay, can you look that up? If Gen X is millennials? But I think that's true.
That's true.
I'm pretty sure. Because X.
And then Gen Y is like the boomers.
Well, it's Y then Z. So maybe Y is the millennials and X is the boomers.
Oh, that's right. X is the boomers.
Yeah. If they like being called boomers. I don't think they do. So that's the boomers.
That's the boomers. Yeah. And then 81 to something, or 80.
96 is millennial.
96 is millennial.
Okay, so you meant Gen Z though. So let's go into that. Let's talk about Gen Z.
Let's talk about Gen Z.
Okay, so this message, and you were like, this isn't for just you guys, so no one else, y'all still listen, but there's a lot of buzz around purpose.
It's funny, even breaking into this XYZ. Right. I think Gen X is old school enough that they're like purpose, schmurpose, whatever. Yeah. The purpose is you get up and you work hard. Just get over it. Right. That's almost in that a little bit of, and maybe the generation before them even more so. But that generation's tough and they're hard. And sometimes purpose and things like that's almost trivial. Yeah. And then you see my generation, the millennials, that who knows? We just don't. We're just this in between stuck period of, I don't even know. But I think when it comes to purpose from them, they want to believe in purpose and they feel purpose, but I think they feel it in a small way. I think you feel like, okay, yeah, there's something, and I want to make sure that I'm managing my day right, whatever. But I really feel like when you get into the Gen Z, and maybe even we're starting to see some emerging alphas, they're kind of young still, but purpose seems to be such an all-encompassing thought. And at worst, I think it's based on selfishness and main character syndrome, because the millennial parents gave everybody a trophy and we shouldn't have done that. Because our parents wouldn't give us trophies for anything. So you have that experience. But I think I think there's no accidents and coincidence. I actually think this generation's capacity for feeling this grandiose purpose is actually in alignment with the hour that we're in the kingdom of God. And they are feeling that because it's true. But if we're not careful, that will be so misguided and it will be a purpose for our kingdoms and in man's kingdom. But I think it's right. I think it's like, man, all of the... there's you can sit here and just tell you all this negative things about this generation, but in the same token, they're fighting for justice, they're fighting for love, they're fighting for purpose, they're fighting for every person has value, they're fighting for that's actually is all true things in the kingdom of God. It might not be being executed correctly, but that is true things that.
I mean, I think exactly what you just said is what I was hinting at earlier when I said there's some obviously some major similarities between last message and this one. Is that what I think you're doing, and is really, really good, is you're taking these things in the world that we know and we're familiar with, New Year's resolutions, right? Longing for purpose, things like that. And you're finding the pieces of it, the root of it, and how it's actually a longing that's a good, it's good and it comes from God, but it's the execution, I think, sometimes that we don't hit right, Right. And I think that, like last time it was like wanting to have a great life and wanting to have this year better than the last. That's a good thing. The best is yet to come, right? That's biblical. And then obviously this week being like longing for this purpose isn't a bad thing. And so I think there's
no weird relationship with it. I mean, I feel like in my role, I get this unique opportunity of meeting with people to talk about things pertaining to their life and their season from the gamut, from my own children starting at 11. I got that demographic to this, all the youth on this campus. I got a lot of Gen Z conversations and then a lot of millennials in my phase of life and then the Xers. But even beyond that, people that are even before Gen X, I don't know what that generation would be, but even those people still weighing in. And I almost see a current of purpose on bookends, on the younger generation and the oldest. I think the oldest generation, purpose was so built into what you had to offer and what you were contributing to the whole, which is the right perspective, that when they stop contributing what they have, it kind of leads to these questions of, then I don't have a purpose because I'm not contributing like I was before. So trying to work with that generation on what can we navigate that purpose doesn't really change, just our assignments do and our gifts do of that season and the things that we're using towards that purpose. So I see it here and then I see it down on Z. But then the in-between, I think there's a weird relationship in between with it. So I think no matter which generation you're of, I don't think our relationship with purpose is the complete picture that God has for us.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Cause you hinted at it during the service of like, Gen Z may have this thing, but Gen X, you may go, like you said, purpose. Like purpose being like,
this is not significant. Quit making it something.
You've lost your relationship with purpose, or you've lost the longing for purpose. Right. Gen Z has a good word for it is maybe like emphasized the longing for purpose and looking for purpose.
And I'd say the millennial is like, they just find purpose in every day making it special.
Yeah.
We're throwing parties and we're making things special. But if you were to take all of that, just that's 4 generations of purposes perspective and put it in a pot, we probably would be closer to the right thing. But we're always in this pendulum swing. Whatever that generation thought it was,
we're
they're going to be
way the other way.
The extreme. So
but maybe could we be getting closer towards the middle?
Could we getting closer? And could Alpha?
Yeah, could they get it right?
And we started all over from scratch. Back to the beginning.
Could we have generations be his legacy and we get it right?
Yeah, could we do it?
But I think that is it's good. I mean, I like you sharing that because it also lets everyone in the room see where they are. It lets you go because if you are a Gen X or listening to the message, you go, oh yeah, they need to listen to this, and then you hit up. But real quick, here's where y'all could be, and they go, oh yeah, I guess I don't care about purpose anymore. It's
such a difficult thing in our community for me or whoever's communicating that day, but also the coolest thing about it or the best thing about it is our community is so diverse. The age demographic is so diverse, the spiritual background. So when you're up there, you really can't preach this one message because it's not just one type of person out there. It is so diverse. Even like I said, background and heritage and season of life, but what you're doing with like your career path, it's so broad. So you really have to sit there and look at everything from all of these different perspectives. So it doesn't allow you to really take a narrative of one way, because the kingdom narrative actually represents all. And if it's not able to be represented by all, then you might not be completely in alignment with the kingdom.
Right.
So that's a really cool element, but also a lot of pressure to make sure that we're really giving the full gamut of these conversations we're having.
Okay, so I like that you talking about the generations, and I think you even spoke for a second about like back in my day, you talk about you and Randy and Jack talking about, which is really funny. You being like, well, back in my day, we didn't even have anxiety. But you weren't that, brash about it. You were like, and I'm not trying to dismiss it, but like the verbiage of that wasn't even a shared thing.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Yeah. I really cannot remember up until maybe this past decade and of that word being a thing. I mean, even maybe in my 20s, I don't remember ever having that conversation with people. Really, it was maybe depression was starting to emerge a little bit on the scene, but anxiety was such a new concept for people to be, and I'm sure a part of it's just we're communicating better and we're being more self-aware, but the ingredients that are breeding into anxiety, I definitely feel like are higher. And I think a big contributor of that is the rise of the individualized pressure. Right. I don't remember what it was I was listening to just a couple of years ago, but it really it stuck with me. But maybe it was for this moment right now or this series we're in. But they were talking about just the family and how if you go back years ago, like really into the old world. And again, I want to be careful because I know some families are extremely unsafe environments, and it's not but I'm really just kind of more targeting towards like a family that's healthy and whole, right?
Right.
But really back then, the family, you were so tribal in nature, and your family really became this unit that everything about the family was built into each other. When children were born into a family, their future was almost in alignment with that family, right? And that's even where last names came from. The Bakers, right? You were going to be from the Baker family. The Smiths, you were blacksmiths.
Yeah.
And so even the last names were indicators of your identity and your purpose. We were bakers underneath our father or our grandfather, our great-grandfather. We're ranchers. Right? And that was built into your family. And so from that, you already knew what you would be doing with your life. That pressure was gone. And then your season of adolescence was an intentional season of development. It wasn't the season of, I'm going to go find my own way. It was like, I'm going to find how to get better in my skill set, because everything was really driven towards that family's legacy. And in that, you weren't having to go figure out what you were going to go do to make money. You weren't having to go make your own living. Your family was actually already generating a living. The inheritance was already in place. So it was more about securing the inheritance and keeping it than it was about going and creating your own.
Right.
And then I think just because of family dynamics being not great, people, the stuff that's happened inside of that was not good and abusive. I think people moved outside of that, and we really begin to get this individualized thought process of what am I going to be? And then even conversations of like, I don't care what my parents want for me. They don't know me.
Right.
And maybe there was some good reasoning in that shift, but there was also a lot of negative ramifications in that shift.
And tearing down of the family
tearing down
structure.
of the family and tearing down of parents. I'm even seeing, we went really down, like everything in my life is my parents' trauma a couple of years back, but I'm seeing it pull out of it now. And people are going like, that has nothing to do with my parents. Like that's not my trauma.
Yeah.
So we really started tearing down the family. We started tearing down the parent structure. We started tearing down I have a duty pre-assigned to me. I owe people around me things. Yeah. I said, there's some healthy measures in that, but I think what it really did was really create a different understanding of even the kingdom of God and that family. And the truth is, in that family, that's all true. There is a pre-assigned duty. There is a pre-assigned responsibility, and there is a father who knows more than everybody and is all-knowing and all in control. When man tried to mimic that, we didn't always have all those ingredients. So I understand why that sometimes wasn't being able to be upheld. So I'm not really coming at that. Right. But I am saying, like, by us tearing down that design, we actually brought that into the kingdom of God. And we began going, I'm on my own. I'm this individual. My duty is on me. What I'm going to be is on me. I can't trust my family and my parents to help me figure that out. I have to figure it out on my own. I have to be my own provider. I have to be. And now coming into this younger generation, not only that, but I have to provide my own like value. It's not just about making money anymore. And now I have to carry this weight. And I think that individualized approach was so costly in this anxiety that we carry, because we really do live like we're on our own and we have to figure it all out and we can't trust anybody. So you've got these statements like, coming out of this, the only one I can trust is me. And I know I set this for myself. All those things that are just kind of coming out of that. Yeah. So I think it led to that and so much pressure that we're living under. But if we're not careful, when we become Christians, we can still be individualized, serving our kingdom. We just now know about God's, but we really need to reform our way of thinking and living to come underneath our good Father who has a good order and has a good purpose for us. And we are inside of a family where we don't share individual purposes per se. We have one purpose. Yeah. And that has to do with our identity inside of that family name. And that family name is actually what is representing who we are. Just like the Bakers, we are now under our family name, which is Christ. Yeah. And under Christ, we are sons and daughters, right? And now we have who we are. And from there, purpose flows, our roles flow, our assignments flow, all these words that we've been using, they work underneath the kingdom of God. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want to jump too far in your message. I can't remember if this was before you went into those 10 truths or after, but I know that you shared about, you were like, I don't know how you guys run your family. You're like, but I think I run a pretty tight ship, and even speaking about that, about like assigning different purposes to the people in your house based on,
sometimes they're giftings, and different things like that. And we all together, we have one purpose, and there's purposes that flow through that are creating this one purpose.
Yep. And everybody in the family shares a different part of that purpose, which is their purpose inside of the purpose.
Yep.
And that purpose is given to them based on their experience. Maybe it's based on their maturity.
Yeah.
So it might be changing even.
Yeah.
They're going to have natural skill sets that you go, they have a skill set for this. Even as far as gender roles, I'm going to give them different roles. I was poking at Tyler about being the trash prince because he hasn't quite always taken that on time, but he actually did really good this week. So I have to give him a shout out.
There you go.
But, even in that, like, okay, well, I'm giving the boys because of their physical making, they're doing trash, they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And my girls, I'm teaching them these things and whatever. So just, there's all of these attributes that go into our role, not just, all right, everybody gets to pick and choose. Let's put this on the table. Raise your hand if you want to be whatever feels most significant to you. And that's kind of what we've done with our giftings and things that God's given us. We begin to go, I'm going to pick and choose what I want, and I'm going to deny the duty of what God's already pre-aligned. And sometimes even my giftedness, not being aware of, like, that's not really my gift.
Right.
We like that gift on you, or we like the applause that it gets you. So I'm going to be that. And that's not really what God's assigned us to.
Yeah.
And I think we waste years of our life sometimes pursuing gifts or dreams that actually aren't from God, but are actually built out of a season of desire for what someone else has.
Yeah. I think that's a big thing. I think that we've been talking about that even, amongst our church staff, as far as like, and then even us getting into the fivefold ministry, right? Like you even see the fruit of other people's giftings and you go, I actually like the fruit of that. I want to jump to that gifting. And you go, well, or I want to jump to the role that gifting has, but, you being able to see that, or you jumping towards that, like, you might not be able to serve that role with the gift that you have. You know what I mean? And I'm sure even you as a pastor in a ministry position, I think that you probably have seen a lot of different people that go, I think I'm supposed to do this. And then you may, either hopefully through the Lord's eyes, not through your eyes, go, you're not equipped to do that. You know what I mean? Like people bring those different things, but I think that is us as human nature. Sometimes we're trend hoppers and we move to what is, the
trendy thing, and then when it's almost like people say you can't do something, it's almost like, well, then no one can tell me what to do. I'm going to prove I can do this. It's like you actually don't have the skill for that, or whatever it is for that, and it's difficult. We have these shows like American Idol and all these things where people go on and they're just like, I'm here because I'm going to be the greatest singer ever, but then they can't sing. And in the world we live in today, it's like you can be anything you want to be. Like, that's not true. Actually, you can try to be anything you want to be, and that's a wonderful freedom that we live in, just like it is in the kingdom of God. You have the freedom to try to be in whatever you want to be. But there's also something that's been pre-designed for you that when you go down that path, you will be successful, and in that you'll be fulfilled.
And I like that, the way that this also has another piece that correlates to last week is that, like, are we asking God what our purpose is? Right? That's what this whole message was about. A lot of times we go, I'm going to find my purpose, or I'm going to tell God what my purpose is, But like, he might have one for us that is, or not might, he does have one that's for us, that's tailored to us, that serves his purpose, and when we pick our own, it could be not one of those things. It could not. It could be not from God. It could be not tailored to us, and it could not serve His purpose. I want to do this. Well, you're 0 for 3 on all these,
right?
And even when you're 2 for 3, it's not as fulfilling as when you are fulfilling His purpose for you.
And we're going to get more into this in the series, but I mean, there's even times that, like, maybe it is something I'm good at. Maybe it is something God's called me to. But now let's talk about time. But maybe not right now. Maybe He's planting that seed and He's giving you vision for it. But that's not where we're at right now. So learning to be in His timing, in His order, all of those things. And the truth is, like, why would we not want to? Because when we are in alignment with Him, that's when we'll be the most successful. But we really want to be the most successful with our rule system, So it's the whole thing is really just built around going, God, I'm going to follow you. And you set the tone. I
think that's good. And I think what you're saying too about, like, not only generations, but this time right now, we talked about, I don't know if it was on the pod, but it was like, in these families that you're talking about, these families where they have like this trade, so to say, baking, blacksmith, carpenter, different things like that. Like, you would do that because that is all anyone around you knew what to do. And you can only learn by what's around you. In this day and age, like, it's like you said, you can literally be
overload,
the expert on whatever you want to because the information's right there. So I think sometimes when the enemy can't make us choose the wrong thing, he'll push us in the right direction, but way too far, right? Yep. So in this situation, I really have the world at my fingertips. So what I can do is I can get so saturated in either one subject that's the wrong way, or I pick and choose too many to try to. And now I'm spread thin, and I can't fulfill a purpose because I'm trying to do this and be that and be that. And we're in this place where we can. At the end of the day, you can really like. Not even with a lot of money, have the access to be able to invest in whatever hobby you want.
Yeah, so many options available, which again, adding to the anxiety of all the things that we have to navigate.
So many options, so many people that you see online that have purpose. And I do this because it may just look like that they do. Some people are finding their purpose. Maybe it's at a young age that intimidates you as the viewer, but also some people are really just good at showing that they found some sort of purpose. Well, and even
let's talk about needs. When God begins to prepare you for a purpose or a season, an assignment, he begins to show you the needs that begin to give your heart an ache for that need and or solutions for that need. And God begins to bring those things to you and open the doors for those things in your life. Well, now we've got, again, information overload. Look at all these needs. Look at all these pertinent things. And instead of us sometimes being led by our desires that God's placed in us and the needs he's bringing to us, we'll jump on other needs and other things and let our hearts burn for that thing with not really allowing God to create it. So that information, I do think, adds to the overload of so many options of purpose. And I just want to feel that. And y'all's generation is the most of like, I need a big, significant purpose. And I'm going to find something big and significant so that I can attach myself to it.
And I think that a big, I would say, symptom of that is, and some bad fruit of that, is that we've lost so many people that feel the need burning for them where they are in their community. Yeah. Because a lot of times big events, big tragedies, big things are not quite often where our feet are planted, right? It's across the world. It's across the country. It's whatever, fill in the blank. And so, or it's such a big global idea that it's like hard to like start where you are. But like I think a lot of us are called, even if you do really feel called to this big idea, it starts where you are.
It starts where you are.
Your purpose really, it starts where your feet is. Like I sent you, I was doing a Bible study, and I sent you that one of the verses that was in my Bible study this week, which was, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few, right? And I think that right now in this time, like the local church needs people involved. You know what I mean? I even said to you, I was like, churches need prayer partners. The bands need musicians. You know what I mean? Worship teams need musicians. Like there's all these needs that need to be fulfilled, and that may be your purpose, but you're thinking the big, and maybe too big. And really like being able to be invested in where you are right now is a great way to like start chipping away at that purpose that God has for you. I
think especially y'all's generation, it's such fruit conscience that there should be characteristics of fruit, how people act, how people success, all of these different measurements. But sometimes that we chase the fruit instead of the season of planting. And I read a book a few years ago. It was called The Power of Place. Yeah, and it was really just like, man, you want God to use you in your life, but like that comes from the time of planting. Yeah, being the place you are, planting in the people around you, the relationships around you, the things. Yeah. But we've really, again, in our modern society, kind of broken that down. And again, maybe your career path or your family, maybe they've been toxic environments. So we've created this narrative of like, don't trust where you're at. Go do something else. The best is somewhere else. It's not where you're at. But a lot of times it is where you're at. And I was even hearing something that was saying like, if you want to make money, the best way to create more income is to change jobs every 2 years.
Right.
Because every time you change jobs, you usually have a $10,000 to $20,000 increase in income. So keep changing jobs. Well, nowadays jobs are all over. So people are moving all over just so they can get that $20,000 increase every 2 years. But instead, they're not planting. They're not. So they're creating significance in themselves of a financial portfolio. But other than that, where really have they brought significance into the world? And the people around them, and that's when we find fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of things that we always talk about this is just sometimes purpose. You said different phrases like this through the message, but sometimes also result of faithfulness is revealing of purpose. I mean, you even look in the Bible, you see Abraham, right? If you can tell, if you can tell that people around the church are using a bunch of Old Testament stuff early in the year, it's because they're early in their Bible plan, and that's what you're going through.
Exactly.
But so you look at Abraham, right? Like Abraham. His story about having a son, even like a child in general, right? Because God came to him and shared this promise that you will be the father of many nations, and your descendants will outnumber the stars in the sand and things like that, right? And he's like, bro, I'm like 80, you know what I mean? And he's like, I don't know if we can do this. And it's that faithfulness that's is rewarded in him having a son at 100 years old. But I always loved speaking about when Abraham took it into his own hands for a minute, and him and Sarah scheme up this thing of, why don't you just have a kid? It'll basically be God's plan. Just remove a couple ingredients, swap them out, and it should be good, And then you see all of the bad fruit that comes out of that, when we try to sidestep our purpose and fill in these ingredients. But that key part, that faithfulness, a lot of times, how we're saying about like really positioning yourself to do what God has called you to do at the time that he's called you to do it. And listen, it may not, it's why I love the comparison of the GPS versus the compass, map versus compass. That's what it is. A map, you can look at the entire thing. You share this. Imagine at 13 years old in your life, God gives you your purpose. Oh my goodness, would you mess it up? I even think what I just talked about Abraham is a good thing. Abraham goes, you'll be a descendant. And you go, okay, or you'll have many descendants. Okay, cool. So I'll fill in the blank. I can't have a child with my wife because she can't have kids. So what I'll do is that I'll have a child with her servant. And that, you know what I mean? Like we will do a version of that with our purpose if we get the entire thing in a, we get a download of what our purpose is at 13 years old. Like it's not going to be able to work. I even think if we had a step-by-step on what to do, we'd get impatient and try to do all steps at once.
Well, I think the map too, it almost eliminates free will. If it's like, here's the map, you have to follow it to a T. Well, then where's free will in that?
Right.
So there's got to be that measure of us being able to make our choices along the way. But God sometimes will give us parts of the vision of our life to help us use as a compass as we, because he trusts us, begin to navigate how we get there. We know the direction we're going, but the different roads and routes, that's up to us. And we need counsel in our life. We need God's word to hopefully choose the best words and best paths. But it's not this controlled, you have to hit every one of these marks and here's the thing. And there's definitely probably the best way to pull this off. But then what part do we play? We're just mindless drones in this thing,
Yeah, and you saying, I love when you said God is so good that he can flip when you go off, when you see that it goes north and you go, but I'm gonna head west for a minute, like he can take that and make the story even better than the original one.
It happened to James and I once. I think I've shared it from the stage, but we were actually, I think we were traveling from Tennessee to North Carolina, and we weren't paying attention, whatever. And we ended up off the main road that we were supposed to be taking to get there. We ended up on some back roads, and so we were trying, but we were so far gone that the route we were on, it would take more time to go back and start over. And so Google was kind of like, all right, here's a new path, ride this out. To this day, there's never been a greater car adventure in my mind than that day that we ended up on these back roads going through North Carolina in the middle of fall. I mean, picture perfect. You can see it in your head. AI generates it now. You're driving, the leaves are covering the road, and as you're driving through, the leaves are, it was magical. There were windmills, and I mean, it was just beautiful. And I thought, man, I wouldn't have ever seen this on this other route. It would have been probably the easiest route and the fastest route to get me to my destination.
Right.
But even in this, God's still so good. And maybe I didn't get to go the fastest, easiest route, but God used my mistake to create a beautiful route.
Right.
And because he's working things out for our good.
Yep.
But if I wouldn't have allowed God to, if I wouldn't have turned back to God and gone, okay, or Google, where do I need to go now? I could have just continued to stay off track and completely miss the destination. But when so we're going to get off, like we're humans, we're going to do it all the time.
Yeah.
But really it's going like, God, am I, it's referring back to that GPS all the time, not just turning it off and not paying attention to it.
Yep.
And so, God, there's a fast route, there's an easy route, but there's also a beautiful route.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's good. And I even like what you said there, like when you talked about, it would actually take us a longer time to go back the way that we came. I even think sometimes that we get to a point in our lives with our purpose where we're so far off that we go, I got to go back all the way to the start, and I got to grovel, and I got to do all these different things, and my life has to be like this, and I have to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you feel like that you have to beat yourself up to go back and at infant stage when God wants to meet you where you are. You know, God, if you go all the way off here, right? God didn't make you go, hey, come back here at the start. Now for some. I'm not gonna tell you what your story is because God might be like, yeah, but I need Johnny to do that. It's gonna work good for him. But like but God will meet you where you are and go, all right, well, let's get you a route this way.
Yeah. And sometimes the route's beautiful, but I'd say sometimes when you get off track and you're out in the back roads, it might be an adventure. I remember when James and I doing that again, but this time it was at night.
Yeah.
And we were in like the sketchiest community. It was definitely giving like right now there is no law out here. And if we roll into some crazy area, people could really just like stop our car in the middle of the road and come out with pitchforks. I don't know. It was just such a, but so that route might have not as beautiful, but that's an adventure. And I think that's within our testimony, how God brought us through. And it was the worst case scenario and it was terrifying. So that's not to say every reroute's always perfect and beautiful, but it is going to be something good in the end because we will get to the destination and we will be able to give God glory for either the beauty we saw along the way or the adventures that we overcame or maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. But when it's in God's hands, we hit the destination, and that's the important piece that we have to continue to keep in amongst ourselves to just like keep going towards Him. Yeah. That's it. You're going to get off. But
the goal is to live like Jesus in the New Testament, right? We look at the New Testament. This is going back to the Bible plan, everyone in the Old Testament. The goal is to live like Jesus in the New Testament. But don't think that you're so far gone that think about the people in the Old Testament that were so messy that God still used. Yep. God uses messy people. And that's not for you to go, okay, cool, I can still live in my messy life and God's going to use me no matter what. It's, like I said, to live your life. The goal is to live your life, and while you're here, follow God's path for you and live like Jesus, but never get to a place in your mind where you're so far gone that God can't turn around.
Right.
My path is this, or my past is this way.
And there's definitely a difference between being off track and knowing you're off track.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so God uses it when we are coming to Him through surrender. Yeah. When we're going like, I know I'm off track and I don't really care. Yeah. He'll use it later, but He ain't going to use it right now. You are going to get yourself into trouble, and you are going to make things harder on you than you need to have them. So I think road trip is a really great way to look at this of our lives. Yeah. Of, you don't want to get so busy looking down and every detail matters. You'll miss the view. But you don't want to get so locked in on the view that you lose where you're at on the road, and there's things in the road that you could have ducked and dodged, but you're too busy looking so far ahead that now you've hit that thing in the road, you have a flat tire. But it's also not unrealistic that when you go on road trips, there are other things that are happening in that road that you did not even cause that will cause detours along the way because that person got in a car accident. That person had a flat. And now they aren't where they're supposed to be on their journey. So now it's impacting my journey. Yeah. And I might have to navigate. I might have to wait. I might have to pull over and help fix their tire because I need them to get where I'm going to. Yeah. So there's so many different things. So you go through that road trip, like this, and you just continue to consult the GPS. And when you do, you'll get where you need to get. That's Might take longer than you thought or hoped. Probably will. Yeah. Like a kid, are we there yet? Yeah. But you'll get there.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Like you said, like no matter what happens, whether sometimes there's elements out of your control. There's elements that were not even a part of the plan. God's like, that's someone else kind of messed up your part of it, right? Yeah. But that's okay as long as you, like you said, you keep this chat window open like we were talking about last week.
And He's getting all the travelers to the destination. We're so consumed with like our car, but like, oh no, there's actually lots of cars on this highway, and everybody's having to navigate where they're going. They're all going different speeds. Some of them are hungry. Some of them are taking bathroom breaks. Everybody's doing their own thing.
You know, it's so funny.
God's got a big job.
Yes, he does. And it's so funny that you say that, because are you ever like driving somewhere super late at night and you're like, I'm never on the road at this time. I'm never whatever. And you see someone else going and you go, I wonder what's going on in their life.
What are they doing?
What are they doing? Why, why are they out right now?
Yeah.
You know? You know, that could be a call for us to evangelize and pull that person over and share the gospel.
What are you doing?
I think don't do that in real life.
I think the parallels are endless on this category for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what we're doing. And it's really just trusting God at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Just trusting God. I think those are really good. I mean, there's so much we can get into that I'm going to leave for the viewer to dive in deeper. Yep. You know, we didn't even go through the 10 truths that you had, but those are so good. Yeah. You know, every single one of those lines hit. I love the verse and references. Now, if you were in service, the verses weren't on screen, but if you go online and go check, they are back online. So go check those out. People like visuals while they're doing that. But anyways, really, really great message. Where purpose begins. It's really good. So thanks for sharing with us. We're excited for this new year. Keep it going. Keeping this current flowing through. I love you going through and pulling all these different things that the world goes, oh, New Year's resolutions. Oh, where's my purpose? And you go, okay, let's bring it back to what God says.
To the kingdom, original
intent.
To
the kingdom, the original intent. Let's go. Even dabble a little bit with the family in there, talking about the family. I'm sure a lot of people go do a whole continuing ed class on the right structure for the family, and you could. Yeah. But we'll save that for another time.
Save it for another day.
So anyways, thanks for sharing. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see y'all next week. If you want to check out full messages, you can find us at LS Church on all podcast platforms. And you can watch full services with worship at LS Church Alvin on YouTube.